Hello and welcome back to another FPL transfer tips video. This is looking ahead to game week 14. Obviously there was no transfer tips for game week 13 as it was a midweek game week. Games being on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. It's essentially impossible to try get 3 videos out in preparation for a Tuesday deadline. So we had our captaincy video with our team selection video, and obviously this being Wednesday we have our transfer tips ahead of game week 14. Now again, as I mentioned, as it is a midweek game week, in terms of the transfers in and out, it's not going to really be too much because essentially we are in the middle of a game week right now, and we've only had one day of transfers being available, so it was kind of difficult putting too many players together for this video. We do have 5 though, and we are starting off with Nicholas Jackson. Now I've got him down as an avoid purely because it is a very important thing to note that he is on 4 yellow cards, so he is 1 yellow card away from suspension. Yes, he does look like an absolutely fantastic option. Chelsea have great fixtures over the next few. It is just the fact that a suspension is definitely coming for him at some point. He isn't a stranger to a yellow card, which is something to keep in mind. In terms of price changes, nothing really coming too shortly. And again, speaking on the yellow cards, if you're going to pick any game that he is going to pick up a yellow card in the next few games, you would imagine it's going to be this weekend in a London derby against Spurs away. So for me, it would be an avoid this week. Ideally, he gets the yellow card out of the way as soon as possible so that we can then buy Jackson for his nice fixture run, because like I said, he's an avoid for now because he's due a suspension, but he is still a really, really good option. I think if I was going to gamble on any week for him to pick up a yellow card, it would be this weekend. So you don't want to bring him in, get whatever he gets against Spurs, who are a pretty solid defence, and then he's obviously suspended for the Brentford game. So ideally tonight it would have been a good time for him to pick up a yellow card. If you're watching this now, as the time I'm recording this, the lineups have just came out and he is on the bench, so unless he comes off the bench and picks up a yellow card, that would be ideal. Then he misses Spurs and then we can bring him in for the Brentford game, but more than likely he's not going to pick up a yellow card off the bench tonight, and hopefully it would be Spurs so you can get him in as soon as possible. But for me, with him being on that 4 yellow card and right on the cusp of suspension, I would probably be waiting and holding off until after that. Next up we have Marcus Rashford, someone who has all of a sudden came back into form over the last 2 games since Ruben Amorim has taken charge, which does seem to be a very popular thing with Rashford as soon as a new manager takes over. So something to keep in mind, but he's only been transferred in 13,000 times. I imagine that to increase, especially if he gets a goal against Arsenal during the week. But I expect that to increase quite a lot, and I do expect him to be one of the highest transfers in this week by a lot of casuals and stuff. However, his fixtures are not really looking good over the next few. He's got Nottingham Forest at home, he's got Man City away, and he's got Bournemouth at home. Now, obviously, a lot of people are looking for an Embuemo replacement, but for me, I don't really think Rashford is that just yet. I think if he can continue that form up with these difficult fixtures, he's up against some pretty good defences, as you can see. He definitely would be a decent option, but we're obviously looking for an Embuemo replacement straight away. Rashford, I don't really feel like is that with his difficult fixtures. You can see the defence rating for his next 5 matches. Forest are the 3rd best defence in the league. Obviously, Man City have been pretty poor as of late, so they're only down at 10th. And then you've got Bournemouth, who are the 5th best defence in the league as well. So after that, Wolves and Newcastle. Wolves, he could easily do something. They are a pretty poor defence, but for Rashford's next 3 fixtures, he's got 2 of the top 5 defences in the league, and obviously Man City in there as well. So I would give it a couple more weeks. It could just be, a quick new manager bounce for Rashford, 2 goals in 2 games, and then he drops right off again. Again, as I said, if he can continue against Forest, City and Bournemouth at that point, then yes, I think for game week 18, he would definitely be a decent transfer. But for now, with those defences, I'd definitely be avoiding. Now obviously this week, with such little transfers being made, I thought I'd take this opportunity to tell you to buy Salah. He's definitely the most important player in FPL right now. He's got 5 double-digit returns in his last 6 games, the top point scorer in the game as well, and the fixtures aren't dropping off anytime soon either. Everton away, Merseyside derby at the weekend, Fulham at home. Fulham are a pretty strong defence, so definitely something to consider. Spurs away is a pretty difficult one. After that, the fixtures, aren't really too bad at all. So as I said, definitely the most important player you can get in FPL. There's no real reason to show any stats or anything because everyone knows how good Salah is, and you're basically just punishing yourself if you don't have him. He's a captaincy option this weekend. I imagine he'll probably be the most captain player in the game. So if he pulls off another double-digit haul, you are just really harming yourself and decreasing in rank. For me, I only brought him in a couple of weeks ago, and that's exactly why I'm sitting in 2 million for my rank. So get him in as soon as possible. Otherwise, you are probably going to regret it over the next few weeks. Now, I've already mentioned them in this video, but Bryan Mbeumo is definitely someone you want to be looking to sell as soon as possible, really, because Brentford's fixtures do not look good for like the next 7 or 8 weeks. Mbeumo was, again, at some point, one of the most essential players you could have, one of the best value players in the game, but for me, I think since it's been, Wisa's came back and played up front and Mbeumo has really dropped off. Again, I can pull up some stats, as you can see, obviously with Wisa's injury at like the start of the season. From game week 5 to 8 is where Wisa wasn't playing, and as you can see by expected goal involvement and points, Mbeumo was performing really nicely. 0.7 expected goal involvement in game week 5, 0.6 in game week 6, 1.1 in game week 7, and then a pretty poor week for him in game week 8, but in terms of points, he's got 8, 9, 8, a lot of nice returns. And in terms of expected goal involvement ranking amongst the midfielders for those 4 game weeks, he was sitting in 7th, so a very, very good, value midfielder who was performing without Wisa when he was playing as a striker. But since he came back in game week 9 is a little bit of a write-off. That was the home fixture against Ipswich, in which they both played and won 4-3. He ended up getting a 15-pointer in that. But since then, the 4 game weeks, he has really dropped off massively for expected goal involvement and points. 0.0 in game week 10, 0.4 in game week 11, and then in his last 2 game weeks, he's only had 0.1. And as you can see by the points, it does kind of represent that as well. So for expected goal involvement amongst midfielders over the last 5 game weeks, he's sitting in 15th, and a high majority of that is going to have what came from game week 9. So he will be a lot lower than that if you were just to look at the last 4 game weeks. So for me, with those difficult fixtures and the fact that he's dropped off since Wisa has came back, Mbeumo would definitely be a sell for me. Now, next one, we have another popular transfer out. A lot of people were taking out Alexander Isak for Jackson this week. Now, again, in terms of short term, it made sense. Jackson had a really nice fixture against Southampton. Obviously, now, unfortunately, has been benched. But for me, it was definitely a poor move. I think I would definitely be looking to keep him. He's not been as explosive as we would have liked this season. He had a little run between, I think, game week 10, game week 12, where he was doing quite well. In the last 2, he has been a little bit disappointing, but if he's ever going to have a resurgence and start playing well again, it's going to be in these next 3 fixtures. Brentford away, Leicester at home, and Ipswich away from home as well. You're talking 3 of the worst defences in the Premier League. I believe Brentford, Leicester and Ipswich are 3 of the top 4 for shots conceded. Brentford have, helped themselves a little bit. I believe they're up to the 6th worst defence in the league. They were, top 3 for a little bit, top 3, top 4. Leicester and Ipswich, you are talking top 2 for worst defences. So, again, Isak, a very nice captaincy option for, again, any of these 3 weeks. He has absolutely brilliant fixtures, and, for Newcastle's talisman, he's definitely the one you would want to go for. Again, no reason to worry about a price change. He's still sitting at 6 million. So in terms of trying to save any money, you don't have to worry about him dropping in price and having to sell him on. So for me, definitely a keep. These fixtures are absolutely fantastic. You're not going to get a better run than this over the course of the season. And at this point, with the fact that so many people are transferring him out, he's just becoming more and more of a differential. So these are the 5 players we have for this week. Let me know if you agree down in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe as well, because we do this for every single week. And I'll see you all in the next one.